kind of the strategy for Nav. So there's kind of like two paths right now, right?
Mhm.
One path is the product development path. So like we're kind of building a collaboration product for startups to build stuff or for companies or whatever. And we're using that to build Navigator itself in some sense.
Mhm.
So that's one path. And then another path is a more on the personal side. And I don't think they're mutually exclusive. They can kind of work together, but they're kind of like two pillars here of the whole structure.
Mhm.
The other pillar is, so one pillar is the collaboration product, and the other pillar is what is called a Memex. I'm gonna
Memex?
Yeah, Memex. So the first one here, I talked about lightweight project collaboration. That's one pillar, and then the other one is the Memex search engine for your mind. It's more of a personal product, right?
It's okay.
So okay, so Navigator strategy. Yeah, so Memex. So I just branched off like learning learning about it.
Mhm.
So basically, what I'm saying is, Memex is a searchable record of all of your thoughts, learning, and reading. For
Right.
example, like right now, I had to restart it because this wasn't updating correctly. But really, I'm just like following down this tree to basically, I'm giving you like a map of my thoughts, which I had already sketched out.
And there's just some bugs that preventing. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. But basically, like a Memex is a searchable record of all of your thoughts, learning, and reading. And I just like branch off Memex, and it gives me a bunch of my relevant writing already. So look, and now I can talk to you about it. I don't have to do any research or whatever. It's already done for me.
Mhm.
So Memex, sometimes said to be a portmanteau of memory and index, in the name of the hypothetical hypertext system that Vannevar Bush described in his blah 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 article.
Mhm.
Bush envisioned the Memex as a device in which individuals would compress and store all of their books, records, and communications, mechanized so that it may be consulted with exceeding speed and flexibility. So Memex would provide an enlarged, intimate supplement of one's memory, and then they talk about how it influenced the World Wide Web. So this idea that this guy had written about in 1945 was one of the inspirations for when they built the World Wide Web. But the point here is that it's Bush. I think this is the point. Bush envisioned the Memex as a device in which individuals would compress and store all of their books, records, and communications, mechanized so that it would be consulted with exceeding and speed flexibility. Okay?
Mhm. Got it.
So that's kind of like that's what
Yeah.
I want Navigator to be. So we just talked about Memex, right?
Right.
So, and another way of saying that is it's a search engine for your mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's I mean, you store essentially the as that article mentioned everything that you read, right, find,
Yeah.
as kind of a reference to that subject. I don't know, mimic.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, exactly. So it's like the things that are important to you, you start, instead of having a search like a Google search engine, which is external, which you're searching what other people have are building and whatever. You've curated that, you've consumed a bunch of stuff and curated that to some resource that you
Mhm.
consider important to you in your learning, in your mind, and what you know. And then you can search that.
And I guess potentially if you're using it, Teams, I guess this is more on a personal level, right? So you
Yeah,
might
this is more important, but no, but
you might
it's
have a
also,
team.
you can definitely, so in the future, what would be cool is like imagine if I had my search engine and you had your search engine, and you know how when you start a note, it automatically searches things, right? It gives you the
Right.
relevant quests.
Uh-huh.
Well, if I was like following you, like Twitter following,
I can see.
it would also search your search engine,
you might find something, let's say on Memex if I had, or
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly. So I'm literally like searching your mind in some sense. So it's like so the team becomes ours is if you're on a team, it's like you are offering up the the things from your search engine that you've marked, Navigator team are now shared in this common mind meld on a team.
And you think in using following as almost like a team permission, right?
Well, no, the following so following is more like on the consumer level
That's
where we're
all.
not on a team maybe,
Uh-huh. So you could
but
offer
but
requests.
yeah, team is like another way. Team is not like following. Team is like it's like a common place where we send our the things we want to share with our team maybe.
Mhm.
Like it's a little it's but the kind of the user action is different where it's like I'm publishing to a team,
Mhm.
but the idea is the same. The idea is that whatever I publish, it becomes shared
Sure.
as a,
Either with the team or with people that follow me if it's
yeah,
consumer.
exactly, exactly. So like people that follow me would see all of my public stuff, for example,
Probably
right?
do that.
Like
Yeah.
everything that's public, anyone who's following me, that stuff will get searched.
Can see it.
But the point is that at the core of it is this idea of a Memex or a search engine for like the search engine for your mind. So
Mhm.
it's the idea that we're gonna record everything, and then that becomes searchable and useful and referenceable and shareable, and it becomes something that you can't like things that you learn now become not a fleeting, not something that flies past you
Yeah.
and you forget and you're like, what was that thing? It becomes like a resource for you to use in your project or your writing or in your conversation or debate or whatever. It
Mhm.
becomes you become much more efficient manipulating the knowledge in your life, and I think that that's going to have a big impact on, how creative you are, how productive you are.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the vision on the personal pillar.
So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
which by personally mean like as a I'm a user, not more of a kind of a B2B, right? More of a B2B.
Yeah, the B2C path. The
Mhm.
B2C path. So I want to show you. So boom, boom, boom. So marketing. I'm not even sure if that's where, but let's call it. Yeah. And actually, maybe I want to do. I do want to do like a marketing. So not at large. There is a growing community of people thinking about this on Twitter. So there's already like a bunch of people writing about this idea, and there's even some tools like one is so some one guy who writes about quite a bit about this is Tiago Fortes, and then there's a product that's trying to do something like this, called RomeResearch.com, and I'm gonna put like a bunch of
Raw research, like raw memory type of deal.
oh, sorry, find more.
Yeah, go for this. He's the author.
He's an author that writes about this,
Uh,
and he has a thing called building a second brain, and he's more of like a teacher, and he actually recommends people use
Evernote, right? Yeah.
Evernote, and now moving to Notion. And then there's so Rome Research is I think this guy named
What is Notion?
Notion is a product.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
Yeah. So it's kind of so like all of it's there's this whole movement happening right now. Um, so actually with VisaCon, Twitter, threads,
Notion. See if I can
interview,
look at it.
report, Congress. So I'm gonna like get more examples, but these are kind of uh, the big players, I would say. Maybe not some of the big players.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Notion now. Yeah, all in one workspace. Yeah,
Yeah. So at GridCult, another threader. So it's all of these people are kind of thinking about the same problem, and so at VisiCon is a Twitter handle, and so is at GridCult. And right now they're using Twitter to basically do the same kind of branching, right? Like if you think about a Twitter thread, um, like there's just a thread, like someone posts something, then they reply to it, then that becomes like it follows the replies. It hooks up all the replies together into a thread, and then in Twitter you can reference previous tweets
Mhm.
in another tweet. So it's almost like it's kind of like a subquest, but with a single tweet. And what happens that that single tweet gets embedded. So he has like a whole. He's a good example of someone who does this. He's like a better example. So he has a whole thread about like stuff that he's read, and like it's basically about Steve Jobs. So he's referencing a bunch of articles that he's read. Um, blah 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 blah. So look, and then he says, by the way, future Visa, if you're wondering why I was looking for that quote, it was for this thread. And he references another thread. So look, now I go to this thread. And look, here's a whole other thread. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I'm reading, like, if I'm a reader of this guy, now I'm reading this. And then in this thread, he references another thread. Says, when trying to make sense of a new confusing thing, I try to identify individual bits that I can verify as likely true and then use those as buoys, guiding lights. And he references another thread. He embeds it. And see how he's like branching, and here's another. This can go forever, basically. I can loop through. He's created all of these connections between his different writing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, no, I see. And then what I guess so. But you're saying if you were to, I'm trying to like compare it to Nav. So it's not as easy to manipulate and search on this in Twitter, right?
Yeah, Nav is kind of like I'm not even sure that it does. I'm not like trying to copy exactly what's happening here. I'm just explaining kind of like the the drive, the desire that's occurring. There's this
Right,
this,
right, right. I'm just trying to like mimic.
but yeah,
Why would people find Nav useful? Because if they're used to this, right?
yes, exactly. Because the thing here is instead of like to reference something, basically to to do this, like he's writing this, he has to. This already has to exist. So this is just a one way of one. This is one way that Twitter isn't really built for this kind of thinking, because he has to kind of work in reverse where like he has to have written this already,
Hmm.
and then he references it to branch into it.
It's not like you can search through like we have a Nav. You can't do this. He has to essentially. Well, he referencing a thread. How does he reference it? Just like creating a link, right?
Yeah, exactly. He has to find this thread. He has to do a search here,
Find it and then
find the
cut.
thread, then go back
There's no easy way
to
to do
this
that.
thread.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like more difficult to make the connection. uh, it's like I'm basically like kind of optimizing this workflow essentially. But I'm also trying to communicate like why I want to optimize this, why this is valuable. It's because like, and first of all, any of his readers they can they can read forever. There's not like, they can kind of almost explore his thinking. They can just keep following these threads. It's almost like a never ending experience, and they can jump off any particular thread into one that interests them. For example, I could be reading this. I'm like, this is, I don't really care about this, but this is cool, and I jump off into it. So that's another. By the way, that's another thing. Like when I jump off, it's not super easy to get back. Like again, Twitter is not optimized for this kind of
No, it's
thing.
very.
So at the moment, Nav isn't either, but we're working towards that. Where like you kind of lose your place when you jump off into here.
Yeah, yeah. Like you're gonna really
Like
use the back button a lot
yeah,
here.
exactly. Like you basically are gonna start hitting the back button.
Uh-huh.
So, but the other point I want to make. So first of all, my contention is that this is useful and interesting, and it's gonna, and that there's people that care about this, and I think it's going to get bigger and bigger. Like it's just starting. There's this idea that we're kind of going beyond the document model essentially. Like even just threads, the idea of threads that Twitter kind of started, like is already a very interesting idea, and now people are like branching threads and referencing threads that referencing each other. Like
Mhm.
there's people are there's this like movement that's kind of starting. Joey's listening.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and then I guess yeah, the for trading and the search engine for your mind approach, and then you mentioned the whole, I guess maybe more of a B2B model where you have the I guess also to B2C the Evernote, the Notion tools that kind of try to give users that one place approach, right, of knowledge,
Yeah,
tasks. That's what we were chatting with Marcus, right, before.
yeah.
On
Well, those start to blend, right? So
right.
if I if I have a search engine for my mind, but I have a job. Well, my job is kind of gonna be a part of that, and there could be tools around how to make that useful. And but like I'm I think that this is important for like if we can tap into this community and if we can offer value to them,
Hmm.
I think that that's an avenue in which way like that's an important channel for growth and for just giving people value that my, there's a community that cares about this, and that's a good test of our product is whether they value what we're building, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And we have to work to kind of like make inroads into that community and create content for them and create and get their feedback and all of this stuff.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah. It makes sense. I mean, I'm trying to think. How do we like? So obviously, first, like there's some along items we need to, I guess, fix, improve, resolve. So, what do you recommend? How do we like, I guess, separating B2C from B2B strategies, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And specific to this, how do we go? I mean, you're already, I guess, kind of chatting with that community on Twitter, right?
yeah, a little bit. But the thing is, like, the product is not quite there yet where I can very confidently push it to be like,
Right, right. That's what I'm saying. So I guess maybe highlighting, because we don't, yeah. So we have a lot of some bugs, some features. So highlighting that
yeah,
list of when we think we should be able to give them. So, or maybe have people try it, or I mean, think a way how.
yeah. So I think that the reason I started telling you this is because I kind of want you to like I'm gonna give like to, I guess not like I want you to do like a little reading about it,
Mhm.
and familiarize yourself with kind of the ideas behind it. Because one way that like here's this Tiago Forte guy. one of his ideas is this idea of that doing this, like keeping this second brain
Hmm.
and you know keeping a memex, it's kind of like a practice. It's kind of like gardening. I like to say
I see what you're saying.
because what has to happen is as you're reading things, you know, as you're encountering things online, as you're reading things, you're like saving that. Like in our case, you would be putting it into the search engine. You would be like feeding the search engine.
You mean you need to remember to actually do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like something you do in your everyday life that the payoff isn't necessarily instant because you save something and maybe 2 weeks later you need it.
That's the whole way. How do we get users to actually use, let's say, the plugin, right?
Yes. So we have to communicate kind of that aspect of it. And I think he does it. Like, I mean, we should we should read his stuff. I've read some of it and see how he talks about it because I think that that is going to resonate with how we also should communicate about
To use it.
yeah to users yeah about the benefits of Navigator. I mean, they're very similar things. It's just that his tooling, I think, I think that we're gonna have better tools, and we're gonna have to explain why, because of the automated search, because of the threading and branching, all of these things,
Very interesting. Right,
and
right, right.
the integrations we're gonna have. But the point is that it's like you're doing this gardening where you're growing your search engine so that and as it gets more and more powerful you get more hits on these searches, you connect more things, you communicate with more people. It's like all of this stuff.
It,
So my point is to you that I want you to learn about this and I'm going to give you a bunch of resources and I want you to start doing it. Like you've been using the tool as a collaboration tool, you
mhm.
know, to build Nav, but I want you to start thinking about how it can benefit you for the personal the Memex use case, personal
Right,
search engine
right.
use case.
Yeah, I mean, I started that as well, kind of randomly. Uh, I don't want to say forcing myself, but it's almost like that gardening approach, right?
Yeah, right. It's a
Uh,
like I like thinking of it, it's like practicing. Like it's a
exactly.
practice in your life.
I
Like I
was,
practice meditation,
yeah, I
and
remember
I
that.
yeah. But I think that reading some of these things and then when you read these things you can take notes on them in Nav and that can be public. You can set that to public. That automatically creates content that we can share on Twitter, on so it's kind of like it becomes like you using this along with me and whoever else becomes a marketing engine.
Marketing, right,
And if
right.
we can get like Marcos using it, Joey using it, like the more people use it, the more it doesn't necessarily. My point is like I want people to not only to think about the collaborative track of building, but from a personal perspective also because I think that that's actually the foundation of this product. I talked about this at our meeting, but like the hierarchy is like it's my personal search engine, and only after it's my personal search engine do I merge with another person's personal search engine, and now we have a collaborative search engine. So it's like it's basically like it's my mind,
Hmm.
and then we do a mind meld, a
Yeah,
way.
I think, yeah, I'm just trying to, yeah, I think one of the things that he was saying, and obviously it'd be good to chat with him as well again on it, but he was pushing more of a, yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it starts with the whole search engine, because even if in a B2B case, it has to really work well with this whole search engine type of approach,
Yeah,
because, I mean, yeah, if you have 5 quests, then you can scroll down, right?
right,
But hopefully you're not gonna have 5 quests. Hopefully you're gonna have a ton of them, and by scrolling down, it's not gonna be
right.
really feasible. So I think at least I understood from Marcos, the B2B case, he was more where he thinks we can get the biggest, I guess, return on investment.
Yeah, I think that that's where the money is for sure.
Right, all right.
But
But
it's just that you can't. I don't think you can skip the step, and I don't think we even want to because there's again, it's like we want to be part of this community